Hello, my name is ScienceBeard and I have come across this item on Retraction Watch. Here's a short excerpt and I'm going to limit myself to this. Now, if you're a lefty or social justice warrior or somebody like me who does not like racism, you need to get over your knee-jerk reaction quickly. But as I am recording this after my holiday and I wrote the script while away without a chance to record it, I originally wrote that. I am not of the opinion that this commentary should be retracted. It needs to be highlighted for the racism that it espouses. And of course, since then, it has been retracted. But I stand by what I wrote then, even in hindsight, but I have added a few more things, like this bit, in order to avoid having to clarify later. So what follows comes under the heading of I still think that. The journal that published it needs to come under academic scrutiny, and I will talk about that a little later. The problem with not retracting it is, of course, that it might get cited a lot, and there we have a perverse incentive in the publish or die environment which has been created by various frameworks which does not promote good academic practice. Citations mean impact, and that's good for the authors, whether or not the work is actually of a high standard. But first, why is it racist? If the idea that you are entitled to write off people as lost causes on the basis of whether or not they have the necessary luck to be successful under a given set of difficult circumstances based on their origins isn't enough for you, then I have 3 tests for you which you may want to follow and see whether or not they get you there. So here are 3 ways in which you can show that this commentary is racist. Point 1. Case study. Let's say you are an employer and you're looking at employing one person and you have 2 candidates which are absolutely the same in terms of qualifications and outlook. One is white and one is BIPOC, that is, black, indigenous and or people of color. It is genuinely, as far as you can tell, a 50-50 toss-up. You get ready to flip your coin when you read this commentary. It tells you that the majority of BIPOC people are not well adapted, whatever that means, to Western culture, whatever that means. You have no reason to believe that the person in front of you is like that. However, how do you decide now? Is it still 50-50? Does this information color your perception? No pun intended. Could it mean that you now additionally judge the BIPOC person by something else over which they have no control? Perhaps their race, skin color, religion, background, because they have been linked to a generalized view? If you had to place a bet now on which person is better for your business, is it still a toss-up? The second way in which you can tell that this is racism. Let's assume for a second that the assessment is true. The vast majority of BIPOCs have not adapted to the Western culture of self-motivation and taking responsibility and are therefore underperforming economically. Okay, now you're in a position as Professor Mead was to make policy. Fine. So let's have a quick look at another group for which we might want to make specific policies based maybe on their sex. Men. Men are responsible for most sexual assaults in society. So let's make laws specifically to curb men's opportunities to commit assault. Let's in fact arrest most of them, unless they're married, because I'm going to stipulate that married men are less likely to commit sexual assault than single men, for no good reason other than I think this is so. My defense for this is, men commit most of the sexual assault and this has long-term effects on the life chances of their victims. Why would anybody object? Is it that you, as a man, haven't actually committed a crime yet? Okay, instead of arresting you, what we'll do is we will tag you with something obvious. A symbol maybe that makes it easy to tell that you are a single and therefore a potential threat to women and children. We will also immediately bar you from working with women and children just to be safe. Still too tough? How about we run a nightly TV program and we pick on the worst cases of convicted pedophiles and rapists and show that every night on TV? It's reality, right? Those men have been convicted and convictions are not an easy thing to procure under these circumstances. Now think about your mate down the pub. He's married and says, well, you have to understand that I have a wife and a daughter and I don't want anything bad happening to them. Harmless, right? Turns out he's a well-respected academic who advises the politicians in charge in your city. Still harmless? The third way that you can tell this is racist. Why is it that there's a growing group of white people which have also sunk into poverty? Why is it that there are any white people who are in more or less the same place as the negative stereotypes of BIPOCs that the commentary describes? Why do white people also face worsening conditions? Have they failed to adapt to their own culture? Or is it likely that there may be another set of factors at play? And before you say positive discrimination, remember that you have to agree that there are no factors except for your own motivation which can explain this, according to this commentary. If you blame the attitude of people, then you lump everybody in the same class or with the same social status in together. So have you considered that class and access to opportunity may be linked in a more significant way? And here is my challenge to people who think that this commentary is legit. Academic research is supposed to add to the body of knowledge, and some academics would even go further and say that it should contribute to the betterment of humanity. What does this commentary add? According to the author himself, these are generalized observations. In other words, generalizations for which we even have a logical fallacy, hasty generalizations. The author himself says that these are fairly established generalizations. So what does it add even if you want to believe that this assessment is fair? Nothing new has come from it. How do you suggest improvements to people's lives? This is the equivalent of an academic shoulder shrug. This is how things are and nothing can be done about it. But here's the rub. If these generalizations are true, and the people who lift themselves out of poverty or difficult circumstances do so purely because they have adopted a more Western approach or positive can-do attitude, you can equally well say that the opposite is true, that external factors have enabled BIPOC people to get ahead, since the hypothesis stated that the vast majority of BIPOC people cannot leave that attitude behind. Their behavior may still be the same as before, and if this is true for BIPOCs, why can't it be true for white people? In other words, it is an unfalsifiable assessment, let alone a hypothesis. Any interpretation will lead you to the same facts. I will try this analogy. If you believe in God, you won't get ill. You profess your belief in God, and nobody has reason to doubt your sincerity. But you got ill anyway. So you must not have believed in God correctly. This sort of thing is common among people who think poorly. If you work hard and try to educate yourself, you will become wealthy. You have worked hard and acquired an education, perhaps a degree, but you cannot find a job which pays you good money. Therefore, you haven't worked hard enough, or your education wasn't good enough, or you can't get hired by the same people somebody else who doesn't belong to your group can. That could be true, of course. But what also could be true is that your nose doesn't fit, the owner's offspring needed a job, or you haven't got the connections to get you to the right place at the right time. Both analyses may have some merit. Therefore, though, any conclusion drawn is based on insufficient data. There are too many possible answers to be definite. Contributions like that need to be cited for all the wrong reasons. It serves to highlight the lack of critical thinking of the academics which actually have influence and access to politicians. The more the cries of, "Don't you know who I am?" or "Who is this?" come out, the less credible their attempts at defending such feeble work will succeed. Also see James Watson, the father of DNA. What happened to him? Well, science took a dim view of his racist attitudes, and he got stripped of his honors. Unfortunately, in other walks of life, you can be racist and it persists. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.